Immortal Empires has just launched, and now you, the player, have the daunting choice of deciding which of the 80+ legendary lords you want to play for your next campaign. Or maybe this just isn't your first run around, it's your 5th or 10th, I don't know, who knows. In this new series, I want to help guide you through deciding which lord to choose by giving you a no spoiler breakdown of each campaign divided by their faction or race. I'll go through each legendary lord, giving you a brief summary of their abilities and what their campaign plays like to help you decide which is the right one for you. Now, I've organized these from the ones I enjoy the least to the ones I enjoy the most, and this is by no means a concrete fact. You might love one more than I do. I'm just grading them off of my preference, so don't feel like choosing the first lord on this list is going to be a letdown or anything. And in this video today, we'll be covering the Vampire Coast. It is worth noting that a lot of things kind of need a lot of love and updating with the Vampire Coast, especially with Aranessa and with Cylostra Direfin. So those kind of things are going to come into the whole portion of grading. Just want to be a little transparent with that up front. You can quickly navigate to any character that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And as always, guys, if you end up enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Help me defeat the greatest boss of all time, the YouTube algorithm. Let's get started here on the Vampire Coast campaigns. First up on our list is the custom hero by Creative Assembly, Cylostra Direfin. Now, this is a pretty interesting character because she has a Bretonnian past and she was heading over to Ulthuan, she drowned, all that kind of fun action. And with her, we get a pretty interesting character that pulls from some units that are ethereal Bretonnian units. So looking at her faction effect, Mistress of the Deep, she gets loyalty +2 for new recruits, which is actually pretty helpful towards something I'm going to talk about in a bit. Upkeep minus 20% for Sirens and Morgul units, and then recruitment costs reduced for the same units, which are quite nice because the Morgul is arguably one of the best units in the army. Just a lot of really great AP anti-infantry damage. Now, looking at her actual skill sets, we get some interesting active abilities. So she gets Song of Enthrallment, which reduces melee attack and speed by quite a bit in a 35-meter radius, and then Ghost of the Past. Now, this is going to allow her to summon a unit of damned knights errant that'll all be ethereal. It's a pretty cool ability. She's also a Lore of the Deep's Depths caster, so she has that ability going for her, and she is ethereal, so she gets 60% physical resistance. There's a caveat to that. We're going to talk about it in just a second here. But she also gets for her traits Siren of the Storm, which enables magical attack for the entire army, which is very nice, and physical resistance 5% for the entire army. So your Morghuls, which typically only have 0, now have 5% physical resistance, and that's going to stack up even more. Same thing with your zombie pirate deckhands, now have 5%. With your Sirens, they go up to a full-on 60% physical resistance, so that's quite nice. Now, looking into her skills, we have the typical blue and the typical red line for her. Now, one thing to kind of take note of here is, with the blue line, not a whole ton of crazy stuff here. Nothing that's out of the ordinary, and everyone's blue line is pretty much the same. The living ship is probably going to be one of the best things that you want to jump into to help out with pirate crew growth, and also construction cost reduction for ship buildings, because you're going to be working on your ships, and I'll show that off in a bit here too. Now with the red line too, it's one of those red lines that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 abilities long, but with the coast you actually can really benefit from it. If you just do this one, held together by screws for all 4 of our legendary lords, it's very beneficial. And then maybe even black powder overload to get a lot out of your carronades, mortars, and Queen Bess, your big super cannon, because you want to really get to Avasti and then eventually all hands hoy, because this gives you base weapon, armor piercing, and leadership bonuses, and it's a 35-meter radius bonus too, a buff too. So it's a very, very nice one. Now, looking at her spells, she just has access again to the Lore of the Deep, Lore of the Depths, whatever it is. I guess Lore of Deep is what it says right there. And this is a good lore, but I think because of her starting location, it's not an amazing lore. Tidecall doesn't do a lot of damage to armored units, and we'll get into this in just a little bit when we talk about, is it right for you? But her custom line, she gets From the Depths. We have the recruitment ring for Lord +1. This is very nice, again, for something I'm about to talk about with the offices. Raised dead cost minus reduced by 10%. Hero capacity for Mongol Haunters, which are, again, really amazing units. The Fiery Diva, which is going to have a cooldown reduction to overcast spells, and wins a magic cost -2 for overcast spells, which is pretty cool. I think that's one of the few characters that actually has an overcast reduction and or bonus of some sort. Emerging Terror, reduce the upkeeps on your Bloated Corpses, which are kind of meme units anyway, but physical resistance 10% for Bloated Corpses, Sirens, and Mongol Haunters. So that goes up to 15% for those 2 units. So your Sirens will have 70% physical resistance, and your Haunters will have 15%, which is really nice. But Siren of the Storm here helps out with miscast base chance, and then Winds of Magic Power Reserve increased here too. But she does get another little unique line. So Ghost of the Past is going to further increase the fighting capability of your Knights Errant, and then further increase the entity count. And then at rank 9, you can make them Knights of the Realm, or go Sacrilege at rank 12 and make them Questing Knights. Personally, go with Questing Knights. They're better units overall. But that's really sick. You get these heavy-hitting AP, 2-handed sword wielding, undead, ethereal Knights of Bretonnia to kind of run alongside you, which I really love. And she gets this cool ability, Charmed, for her magic attack, reducing melee attack by 8. Now, here's something to take note of. She gets eventually a Rotting Leviathan, which is a really, really good thing to ride. It's a very strong, just devastating creature. But if I hover over this, I don't think I can show you. But she, A, loses her charmed attacks, and B, you can't see it, but her physical resistance, she loses it. She no longer has 60% physical resistance on the Rotting Leviathan. And she has a bunch of cool attack animations that are unique to her and everything. She loses them on the Rotting Leviathan. So that's kind of an unfortunate thing. It's not necessarily a knock against her, but it is something that kind of curtails her power. Same thing with Aranessa Saltspite, which we'll talk about. For her quest item, she has the Bordaloo Flabellum, and this gives control, magic item drop chance, miscast base chance, vampire corruption, but this passive ability here with power recharge and decreasing cooldowns. She also starts though with Robert Bartholomew, which is an ethereal undead paladin, which is great. Dude, look at this, 35 or 55% physical resistance, which is awesome for his skill set. He gets cold Blood Blade. The Cold Blade, which gives melee defense, and then Chilling Aura, which reduces speed by 30%, making it way easier to chase things down, because he also has Frostbite too. Damned Rage gives him bonus versus infantry, and he already has a built-in 20 bonus versus large. He gets this death, and then... he gets Evanescence, which also gives him a further 20% to his ward save. So it goes up to 23% on the ward save. So it's actually a really strong character, which already starts off as immortal right when the game starts. So you always have access to him. So a lot of really cool things that this character gets access to. But I will say that because she has so many cool things in the very beginning, she's very cramped for points in the start. And then at the mid to late game, she kind of runs out of things to put points into. She doesn't have a yellow line. Her spell line is, again, very transparent, very straightforward. And that's kind of really it. You're pretty much pouring just a ton of points here into this red line to make your whole entire army better. Now, one of the big things with the Vampire Coast is they have a very crazy technology tree. But the big thing to focus on with it is Sentries in Command. This is true for all 4 of your Legendary Lords. You press this button and it gives you Lord Recruitment rank +5. And then this results in Lords that come out at base rank 6. Because of her, she gets them at rank 7. And then you place them anywhere in these fleet offices. So these fleet offices require rank 5, and then they require loyalty 5, but almost all of them have a bonus that says all provinces or all armies and factions, whatever it is. So basically, you just recruit these lords, put them into these locations, and then you disband the lord. So you never pay upkeep for them, and you get all these all-army faction-wide bonuses, like all the ammunition here for your pirate gunnery mob, your rotting Prometheans, and your deck gunners. So keep that in mind. It's a big thing for the power curve for all the factions, because as soon as you get that unlocked at turn 14, it just immediately jumps your power up. So it's something to consider here. But when we take a look at the actual campaign for Cylostra, I guess I got to talk about the shipbuilding too. That's a big portion of it too, because you have a whole ship that you can have, or that is following you around the whole time. It's part of your character, and that ship will give you access to recruiting units. It'll give you access to campaign movement buffs, to upkeep reductions, to casualty replenishment rate, to pirate crew growth, which is the actual growth for the ship itself, defensive capabilities. She gets Cylostra's Balcony, which is control, casualty replenishment, and leadership, which is it's all right, it's okay, it's cool, but it's a great way to just kind of have, okay, I want depth guard, just recruitable on whim with my army, or this whole line, which gives me access to Zufbar 42-pounder army ability, the Sartosan Grape Shot, and then eventually the Norse Roar, which are all 3 amazing abilities to have for your army. So the Vampire Coast is arguably one of my favorite campaigns because the campaign itself is very fun. You have these treasure maps you got to go do, the Pieces of 8, which gets you access to all of the Regiments of Renown, and this is all really fun. And that's not unique, though, to Cylostra Direfin. Cylostra Direfin's campaign here is kind of wonky because I personally find it to be a little aimless. You start over here at the Clawed Coast, whereas you used to start down here at the Straits of Fear, and you have Dark Elves, a High Elf, Dark Elves, and then Taroks, and then guess what? Dark Elves, and there's Dark Elves over here, and then there's High Elves over here. So, hey, guess what? There's a Dark Elf right there. I'm sorry, I thought this was Ulthuan right there. It's not. Dark Elves right there, and then High Elves over there. And guess what's over here? Dark Elves. So you don't really have a lot of of diversity around you, and your lore of Magic isn't too awesome in those locations. So I kind of find that this campaign falls a little flat, to be totally honest. I think the Vampire Coast overall needs a little bit of an overhaul to some of its mechanics, but it's a very fun campaign thematically. But if you do want to play a campaign, we are using a lot of ethereal units, the Sirens, the Knights of Bretonnia, the Paladin, and you're pulling a lot of Morngol Haunters into your army, and you're using the actual what's the hero unit? What's that called? What the hell is that one called? So yeah, the Haunters. So this is physical resistance for the Haunter. I'm sorry, I thought this was for the actual Morngols. It's only for the hero unit gets that 10% physical resistance. So if you want Morngols, you want Morngol Haunters, you want Sirens, just an ethereal Vampire Coast Undead Brigade, this is definitely going to be the campaign for you. Next up is Keira Knightley herself with Aranessa Saltspite. And this character is interesting because it starts over here in Sartosa, a new fun location that is, well, it's not a fun new location, it's always been there, but it's its fun location here because it has a lot to kind of pull and take advantage of depending on what direction you want to go. But looking at her faction effects, she has piratical ambitions, and this is going to give her diplomatic relations -100 with Norska, chance of finding treasure maps plus 25%, income from raiding plus 50%, and income from sacking settlements plus 20%. She can get up to 95% bonus towards raiding. So I don't ever raid. I always find it kind of useless. But if you do it a lot, trust me, you're going to be able to do it quite a bit with her. So for active ability, she's got Manon's Luck, which is going to give her a huge boost to her melee defense and her damage resistance, which is great for her survivability. Spearfish's Net, which is going to lock something down and reduce its melee defense by 24, which is nice because looking at her damage profile, she does bonus versus large and armor piercing. So she does quite a ton of damage, and it's going to be great versus who she starts right next to. Now, she also gets charge reflection, which is cool, and charge defense versus large with her current stance. But she also gets physical resistance 20%, which, guess what? She's going to lose that soon. She has a trait 2, Queen of Tides. Character's aura leadership is increased, and then melee attack and weapon strength increased by 8 and 20% respectively for Sartosan units, the two units that she has unique to her. For her skills, everything is very run-of-the-mill. She has a standard blue, red, and yellow line, getting access into Taunt, which eventually goes into Hornswoggle, which is a really good one for melee defense, armor, and speed. You couple this with Spearfisher's Net, and she's going to be able to burst down any lord very quickly, very fast, which is the same thing as saying quickly. But she also gets Forger, and these are the same Forger, Smuggler, Poacher, and Arsonist that every other character gets, but she gives also some other bonuses. So this is going to give income from raiding for 20%, income from all enemy buildings, control. But this one over here is going to give melee defense 8 for Sartosan units, campaign movement range 8%, which she can stack with her movement range of here 5%. Don't worry, there's more stacking to be done with the movement range. Poacher is going to give her charge bonus plus 8 for her Sartosan units, but it's going to give her that nice juicy bonus versus large plus 10, and also recruitment rank plus 2 for Sartosan units. And then Arsonist is going to help out with melee attack and melee attack for her Sartosan units. The missile strength bonus is the same one that all the other lords get. Now for her unique line, she gets Mutant, which gives her perfect vigor and hit points increased. Sawfish Pegleg, weapon strength and armor, Creatures of Manan, upkeep reduction for her Sartosan units, Rotting Prometheans, and Rotting Leviathans. Same thing with a missile resistance on the 2 former units. Gifted Sailor further increases her campaign movement range by 5%, casualty replenishment casualty replenishment rate by 6%, and leadership for those Sartosan units. Self-taught Gunner gives her extra uses of Norse Roar, Zufbar, and Sartosan Grapeshot, as well as ammo for her Big Boom Explosive Cannon Carronades and Queen Bess. And then your worst nightmare, increase plunder from encounters at sea, and melee attack +8 and ward save +5%. So those are all great things. But with Rotting Promethean, which is the smaller, right? The Rotting Leviathan's the big boy, Rotting Promethean's the smaller one. This reduces, you can look at her resistance right there. It removes it. So she loses her physical resistance, which kind of sucks. It's quite good. It's really helpful for her stability, because she does get a huge increase to her armor, which is nice, but she loses a little bit of that melee attack because she's so strong in combat. You want that melee attack to really allow her to hit the target. Kraken's Bane is going to help with her weapon strength and passive ability. Kraken's Bane gives it a further increased bonus versus large, +8, and +5 melee attack in a 35-meter radius around her, and income from rating +25%, melee attack +10. So, like I was saying, rating can really be juiced up here. You just go ahead. Oh, is there not another? Oh, I guess it's just Forger. So 20% from this. Then an additional 25% from this, plus her innate 50% from her faction effect. That's 95% income from rating, just from her skills and faction effects, which is quite nice. And when you look at the actual character, we have her 2 unique units, the Sartosan Free Company, which are very good. 31 weapon strength with 6 bonus versus infantry, which is great. 40 melee attack, very low on the defense and armor side of things, unfortunately, but a decent enough speed and charge bonus. I mean, it is what it is. They do have this cool ability, though, Rowdy. So as long as their leadership is not wavering, they have an increase of their leadership and perfect vigor. 2, they have the Sartosan Militia. And both of them can Vanguard, by the way. I was like, I know one of them can. And the Sartosan Militia are basically Free Company militia from the Empire. So you've got that benefit there. They can fire whilst moving. And they have got Rowdy as well here. So they're really great units to use to basically replace Zombie Pirate Deckhands and your Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob. They're 2 really awesome units. Now, where all those things fall short is that Aranessa and the Sartosan Free Company and the Militia are not undead, right? Not undead here. This unit is undead. And part of the big thing of playing the Vampire Coast is you take advantage of... There it is. The Lore of Vampires. And in the Lore of Vampires, you know what you use. It's that Invocation of Nehek. If I could ever find it. Right. Yeah, Invocation of Nehek, in addition to the Curse of Undeath. So because you can't tap into those things, it does kind of curtail Aranessa quite a little bit in her stayability, and also of the units. You can't really have a Sartosan Militia and Free Company massive doom stack, because you really lose out on the ability to heal them, and their viability in the mid to late game very quickly falls off. So that's unfortunate, because otherwise they'd be very fun units to have. And the fact that too that she loses her Rotting Promethean, bucks off her physical resistance, does quite suck, because she also has really cool attack animations that are strapped to her character. But with all that being said, Sartosa is an amazing little location. It gives her access to Peg Street Pawn Shop, which gives her a ton of tradable resources, and then Smithy's Tavern helps out with a lot of nice income, control, hero recruitment rank, casualty replenishment, local recruitment capacity, then Dragontooth Lighthouse. All sea regions are made visible to your faction. This allows you to create a trade empire. Let me tell you, you can get out of control with trade with Aranessa, and you just quickly kind of smash out Tilia, and then you'd think take out the border princes, but no, it's really, you're going to be fighting against the ogre kingdoms. You're going to be fighting against Scrag, the Slaughterer, quite quick, and you'll be able to deal with him so fast, because you're going to be doing so much bonus versus large with Aranessa that you can just shut down Scrag quite quickly. And once you do that, you know, it's kind of carte blanche wherever you want to go. But what I kind of find is, again, I run into a very jammed up campaign. Oh, and one thing it is worth noting, she can recruit man-eaters, the ogre units. Unfortunately, they can only be man-eaters, not man-eaters with pistols, and I would really like to see like some of the other Sartosan units, like the Sartosan units with great weapons that were part of the pre-release of Vampire Coast, which we have since lost. But with this campaign, if you want to have a massive trade empire and you want to really focus on a character that can have that really strong trade empire, because you're going to be running into Grand Cathayan trade caravans very quickly, and it's very easy to establish a 3, 4, 5,000 gold income by turn 20 or 30, depending on how you play it. This is definitely going to be the campaign for you. But I do find that her unit's ability to not really last in the mid to late game kind of suffers. Her inability to buff any other units outside of that, again, kind of suffers. And her really jammed up starting location, where you've got what's it called? Not Astalia. I don't give a crap out. Astalia. You have got Clan Scryer right here. Ikaclaw, that's it. I almost said Skrulk. But you have Ikaclaw right here. You have Belagar right here. You have Scrag right there. Rapunzel Leoness is right there. Arkin the Black's right here. And you have Khemri as well as Scarbrand right there. It's so jammed up that there's not really a lot of really good places to move. And if or when we ever get a Dogs of War campaign, or this starting location will become even more jammed up and even more difficult, but maybe even more interesting, because hopefully with the Dogs of War, we could get a tried and true Sartosan faction that makes these Sartosan units a little bit more fun and exciting. But as it stands, I think the next two Legendary Lords we're going to talk about are way more fun for the Vampire Coast. And what a fitting lord to talk about than the actual creator of the Vampire Coast, Luthor Harkon. So let's take a look at his faction effect here, the Captain of the Coast, which gives him Diplomatic Relations plus 60 with the followers of Nagash. Diplomatic Relations with the Vampire Coast Mutineers reduced, which I don't really understand why that is a faction effect. It's your turn 1 opponent, so you're going to destroy them by turn 10 anyway, so it kind of, I don't know, didn't make much sense to me. But melee defense plus 6 for lords and embedded heroes, and diplomatic relations minus 60 with lizardmen. Again, doesn't really make much sense to me, because they already have a cultural aversion against you, because it's your primary target for this campaign. It's like nothing but lizardmen and Skaven, because now Lustria is way more open. You do have Bordaloo right here, and you have some Dark Elf action over there, but by and large, it's pretty much you creating your vampire empire in Lustria, which is fun. Now, into Luthor Harkon's actual abilities, he has Power Siphon, which increases cooldown and reduces the vigor of things by 1% for 30 seconds. It's not 1%. It's not 1%. Period. You get it. It's a dot, a damage over time thing. Captain Dracula here is going to give melee defense for zombie pirate deckhand mobs and zombie pirate gunnery mob units that are really good in the beginning of the game, but again do fall off towards the late game. And when we talk about his other abilities, he gets extra powder, which gives AP explosive damage, base explosive damage, armor piercing missile damage, and base missile damage, all bonuses 30% as long as their ammo is above 80%, which is it's worth noting that as the creation of this video, there was a bug that whenever you cast any healing ability, it replenishes all the ammo of your Vampire Coast units. Expect that to be patched out very soon, if not by the time this video goes live. He also gets Magical Void, passive ability, ward save, spell resistance of 30%, which is quite nice here for kind of negating a lot of spell resistance. That gives him 55% spell resistance, which is very nice. He also gets Arch Grand Commodore, which helps out with Vampire Corruption, leadership when fighting against Lizardmen, and spell resistance 25% for the Lord's Army. Then he has the Mad trait, gives him melee attack, weapon strength, and attribute Rampage. Now, it's worth noting that as a part of Luthor Harkon's campaign, he will have traits that will come and go as he goes through these fits, these manias, and these little trips here. And eventually it will land him a full Lore of the Deep spell line to take advantage of. He can never increase it. He can never put points into it, so he only gets the rank 1 of all of them, which, to be totally fair, is actually not that great. You're better off just having a Lore of Deeps, a Lore of Depths character in your army anyway, but he does get access to it, so if you want to give stuff like the increased reload and damage abilities, those are quite nice. Now for his abilities, that yellow, I'm sorry, that blue, that red, that yellow line, they're all the same. He gets access to the Forager, Smuggler, Poacher, and Arsist abilities. You saw these on Aranessa. They're all the same thing right here, just no Sartosan unit bonuses. He also gets the Hunger, which is going to give him a passive regen because it allows him to draw blood, the Supernatural Horror, and then he gets a Death Shriek Terrorgeist, which is actually a very strong and very good mounted unit. Not as good as Noctilus's, but it's still pretty damn good for what he does, he being Luthor Harkon. Because Luthor Harkon does disrupted damage. Well, mainly let's look at his pistol, because if he jumps on his Death Shriek, he loses that and just does poison damage. And his pistol, it does miscast chance plus 100% and physical resistance minus 10% to whoever he shoots. It also does AP damage, which is very, very nice. And looking at his unique line, it's going to give him Frenzy and Leadership increase. Man of War is going to help out with Vampire Fleet Captains, not the Admirals, so that's just the hero unit. Leadership increase for your Zombie Pirate Deckhand Mob and Death Guard units. Severed from the Wind, spell resistance here. Hand Cannon is going to give you Explosive Bullets, which is fun, and Missile Strength plus 8%, as well as Missile Strength increase for pretty much all of your Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob and your Rotting Promethean Gunnery Mob units. I said pretty much, it's just all those units. Moment of Lucidity helps out with armor and melee defense, and then Pirate King has upkeep reduction and then global recruitment capacity. So by and large, he doesn't really have a ton of very exciting unique lines. It's really more attached to his story quest and getting traits and things from that. That's kind of a little bit more his focus and not so much his actual skills. Now in his quest item, it's Salon Gold here, which gives him a power recharge reduction of 80% and spell resistance, a further spell resistance of 20% and raised at cost minus 50%. So you can see how those things work. Also, he starts at the Awakening, which has a ton of slots, 10 building slots with the landmark, the Collapsed Cavern, all the way up here to the Ancient Vault, which is, I mean, building this, you want to then eventually, you want to build that fast. Like, you'd wait until tier 5 to build it, right? You're not going to suffer through the turns of, or suffer through the time it takes to get from tier 3 to tier 5 with all those things hampering your army. So you want to get to that quickly. And also keep in mind that's a 12 turn build. So you want to reduce that build time as much as you can. A lot of fun things happen once you make the Ancient Vault. Don't want to spoil it for you. But outside of that, the actual campaign here for Luthor Harkon is fun. It's interesting because, you know, you talk about Cylostra and she can have this kind of wild little empire over here, and Aranessa can really go wherever she wants according to any one of these coasts around here. But the person making the tried and true Vampire Coast campaign, the Vampire Coast Empire, is Luthor Harkon. And again, without so much direct Legendary Lord opposition to him, he has the ability to really expand out quite quickly and take over almost this entire portion of the map. Of course, there's Gorok down there that he's going to have to contend with, and Mazdamundi's up here. But I think what makes this campaign so fun is, unlike the other vampires, especially Noctilus, which we're about to talk about, he creates a vampire empire. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it just so happened to. And I think that that is really, really fun, and it's really cool. And it is, and this character does it so well, especially when you get him on a Death Shriek Terrorgeist. He is a literal terror. It is a very fun campaign. And I think that of the 4 Legendary Lords, he has lasted the test of time better than the aforementioned 2 that we've talked about, but not quite as good as the next one. So again, if you want that Vampire Empire, the Vampire Coast, then Luthor Harkon is going to be the Lord for you. All right, my favorite Lord for the Vampire Coast is Noctilus, the king of aesthetics over here. So let's take a look at his his faction effects in the Master of the Bloody Reaver. Gain War Declaration missions with unique rewards. They're not that unique. They're kind of nice. So some of them are, not all of them. Diplomatic relations plus 60 with the followers of Nagash, and then pirate crew capacity, recruitment capacity plus 2, and recruitment duration minus 1 for the Necrofex Colossus units. That is his focus, is that big bad boy. So looking at his actual trait, Lord of Dread, it's going to give him upkeep reduction minus 20% for the Necrofex Colossus, and then weapon strength. This is awesome, plus 15% for large units. That is a lot of units in your roster, and I'll show that off in just a second here. But he also starts with Wraith Storm, which is going to be a nice bombardment ability. It just does a lot of really great damage here, and he gets a good amount of bonus versus large and AP damage from his awesome crustacean halberd. He just is a badass looking character. But if I go ahead and click on this, we can take a look that all these units are large, and then almost all these units are large too. Like, okay, the obviously Scurvy Dogs and Felbats aren't. So he's giving a bonus, just a flat bonus to all those. And he will eventually be on a Necrofex Colossus. So he gets a further bonus to his weapon strength, which is great. Like, he is such an awesome character. Now for his yellow line, his blue line, and his red line, all the same. But he also has his own custom casting kit, which is, again, badass. He gets Allure Shadows ability, then he gets the Curse of Undeath and Invocation to Hex, so he can heal, but he also gets Drown Dead, so he can summon up zombie pirate gunnery mobs in the Withering, and then also he jumps into Smoke and Mirrors, so he'll be able to get that Allure of Shadows increase to speed, but then Pit of Shades and Winds of Death. Like, it's an Arcane Conduit. He is the best character, in my opinion, because he gets access to pretty much everything. And then looking at his line, Master of the Dreadfleet gets Lord Recruitment rank +2. We already talked about how you can exploit that, but look at this further. One of these, I think, is like rank 7. Okay, this one's rank 8. So upkeep reduction -8% for all armies faction-wide, and then loyalty for new recruits. All armies faction-wide get pirate recruit capacity increased. So these things are nice because he can get that fleet secretary pretty goddamn easily by getting the technology, having that skill, and maybe one other thing's going to increase Lord Recruitment rank. But then Regenerative Hulls helps out with casualty replenishment and local recruitment capacity, further increasing his ability to just spawn massive armies. Vandal helps out with income from raiding, income from sacking settlements, those things are whatever. But pirate crew growth +5 is great. Of the Von Karstein line is going to help, is going to help out with the passive ability of giving him regen and having him cause terror. And Sea Curse is going to give leadership and melee defense bonuses for Depth Guard, which personally they're my favorite unit in the entire army, but also applies to Terrorgeists and Deck Dropper units. Now keep in mind too that it sounds like I said Dick Dropper. You can use this to couple those bonuses, right? So leadership and melee defense of 6 to your Depth Guard. Sea Curse is going to make that leadership now 10 and that melee defense 14, which is awesome. And then Invincible Fleet attribute Unbreakable and leadership 5. So none of these are amazingly like broken abilities, right, in his top line, but it's great because they give a lot of really good benefits that are applicable to the entire campaign, not just the very beginning, not just a very simple nuance. It's very nice. And then his starting army, it has a Necrofex Colossus and some Depth Guard, which is just juicy. It is such a strong start. For his quest, he also gets Captain Roth's Moondial, which gives him further campaign movement range of 15%, and then this nice ability, which allows him to summon zombie pirate deckhand mobs, which is just 2 uses. So it's not bound to your Winds of Magic. So you can be summing up tons of zombie pirate deckhands, and it's just a really nice coupling. Anything else I forgot to talk about in his abilities? I feel like I missed something. Probably. I mean, Charge Reflection and Charge versus Large is nice, but Necrofex Colossus is a huge power spike for him. And it is worth noting too that so on the Necrofex Colossus he'll get extra powder and abandoned ship. I totally forgot about those 2 things. But with this campaign, you get the Galleon's Graveyard, which is centrally located. Has this building browser. It gets you this cool landmark, the Wreck of the Helden Hammer, which is going to give you recruitment rank for artillery units, recruitment cost for artillery units reduced, and then missile strength for your Carronade, Mortar, and Queen Bess. So a lot of really cool bonuses right there, right? And the nice thing, though, is that you don't really need to bother with Ulthuan. Sure, you start by Ulthuan, but my personal opinion to you is leave Ulthuan. Don't even bother. Go through this little straight right here, and then take this sea route to jump up over here into Nagaroth, if you so wish, or take this sea route and jump all the way over here into Cathay and have a ton of over here into Cathay and have a ton of fun. Go and shut down Lokir and shut down this unit or this army of Vampire Coast, and then just take over this region, and you have this like burgeoning vampire empire in Grand Cathea's Undead Growing Legion, which is a lot of fun, and that's what I like about this campaign. I'm telling you how I played the campaign. You can play this campaign however you want. Nothing binds you to staying over here in Ulthuan. You can go over here into the Old World and start taking over portions of the Old World. Into Bretonia. You can go down here to the Southlands or into Lustria. It's what I like so much about this campaign. It is truly, you are playing a vampire pirate. You are a tried and true pirate. You're marauding around the map. You don't care where you're going or what you're doing. You can just go about you can hit the open seas how you so wish. The only thing you got to focus on, and one thing I haven't talked about with any character, is this: use your vampire fleet captains. Use your vampire fleet captains to establish pirate coves, because basically that allows you to have tons of money to go do and create whatever you want wherever you want it. You have a 10 socket. Or 10 slot, capital that you can then make whatever economic units or economic buildings you want, and then whatever recruitment buildings you want, to have lords come out of here, and then have them go maraud in a different direction wherever you want. You don't have to have an established location with Noctilus, not in the same way you do with Cylostra or with Harkon, and I think that you kind of end up having with Aranessa. It's truly however you want to play this campaign. And that, I think, is what makes Noctilus the very best Vampire Coast. General, Lord, Captain, Commodore, Admiral, whatever it is. But that concludes our video here on the Vampire Coast, guys. If you have any other ways that you play the Vampire Coast, let it be known in the comment section below. I play these a very specific way, and I've told you exactly how I played Noctilus, so maybe you have a whole different route of approaching this. Let that be known. I want people to have different ways and different approaches to these campaigns, rather than just simply my opinion saying, I didn't like this character because it didn't fit my playstyle. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. The next video we'll be doing, I had said this last time, I think it'll be Lizardmen, or, man, I think Skaven might be towards the end because there's like 50 Skaven Legendary Lords. But it will probably be Lizardmen, as it seems to be a pretty heavily requested one. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.